Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going through my round 6 tips, so let's see how we did last week. Now last week I had a pretty poor last week. I did get 5 last week, so an okay round but pretty average, and I started off poor. I got the first 2 games incorrect. Obviously Geelong powering home at the Adelaide Oval, they play really well there. Collingwood got a thrashing over Sydney. I was a bit disappointed in Sydney. I did tip Gold Coast. I did get that one correct. I also got the Carlton tip correct. I also got the Brisbane tip correct. What a comeback that was. I did get the Essendon tip incorrect though. The D's were arguably the most disappointing team of the round. I got the Freo tip correct, obviously. I did also get the GWS tip correct, and that was the only correct scoreline I got on Super Brew 4. Then I also got I didn't get the Port Adelaide tip correct. That was a bit of an upset there to finish off the round. So let's get into this week's tips. We start off at the Gabba for the Easter Thursday game between Collingwood and Brisbane at the Gabba. Brisbane, they've been really good to start off the season. They're just one of 2 teams to start off 5-0 or be undefeated. Obviously, the 2 Queensland teams are undefeated. Gold Coast are 4-0, Brisbane are 5-0. And in pretty much all of their games, you could argue that they aren't even playing their best footy, at least for the first half, because in all of their games, they've been down by at least 25 plus points, and they've managed to work themselves back into the game to win it. Kind of like the Sydney Swans of last year, who sat at the top of the ladder and did the same thing. But they're the premiers. They're going a bit under-noticed at the moment. They just keep on winning, and I think if you count last year's winning streak, they're on like a 9-game win streak or something, so including last year. One thing that they would want to fix, though, is being down in those games. You know, I feel like every time just does give you the little bit of nerves as a Brisbane supporter being down by that much, and they are relying on big comebacks, which they've certainly been able to show, but yeah, look, they're going to have to improve on that. I feel like maybe getting off to some better starts would help them. The Pies, well, they've won 4 in a row after losing the first game to GWS, and they're in some red-hot form here, so this is a very tough game to tip. Yes, it's at the Gabba. Yes, Brisbane are undefeated, but Collingwood, they've won their last 2 or 3 against Brisbane. They beat them back-to-back last year, then obviously in the grand final. So I don't know. They did win this fixture last year at the Gabba. They're in some really good form, the Pies. I'm not sure if Houston will be back or not, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge here for the Pies. I'm actually leaning towards the Pies for a bit of an upset here. I think they can get it done in hand. Brisbane, their first loss. Let's say Collingwood in a bit of an upset on the Easter Thursday to win by 15 points at the Gabba. We head over to Marvel now for the Easter Friday clash, or the Good Friday clash between North Melbourne and Carlton at 1:20 p.m. This should be a pretty much more interesting game than the last couple of years between these 2 sides have been. Obviously, Carlton, they got their first win, which they really needed to against West Coast, and they got it done big time by 70 points. I thought they'd win by around that margin. I thought they'd win by 40. Wasn't expecting them to win by as much as they did, but yeah, look, they were just far better than West Coast on the weekend, and hope that should give them some confidence moving forward. As for North, well, I feel like the scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect how the game went. North, they were actually in it for most of it. They actually started off poor. They were down by like 5 goals. They managed to hit the front, and then Gold Coast just pulled away late. So they proved they can score North, but their defense, and when they don't have the ball, they just look like the worst team in the comp. I think they're like the top 3 worst defensive teams of all time, sitting in that category, worst defensive AFL teams of all time right now for North. So that's something they're going to need to improve. I just am slightly leaning towards Carlton. I feel like maybe after starting 0-4, they want to win this. If they don't win this, I honestly think their season's back to being over. They've got to win this. They've got to go 2-4. I think the Blues will get up in a bit of a close one, though. I think it's going to be much more closer than people expect. I'm going to go the Blues to win by 8 points at Marvel on the Good Friday. Then the Friday night game, like the recent trend has been with these Good Friday night games. At Optus, we have Essendon taking on West Coast. Now, just to set the record, I think there should be way more Friday and Saturday night games at Optus. There should be more night games, not the crappy Sunday Arvo games. Optus Stadium is a massive stadium, and it's just going to waste. It's a beautiful stadium. There should be more night games like these. Obviously, Freo and West Coast over the past couple of years haven't really been at the best, but yeah, look, there should definitely be some more night games like this one. Anyways, we have the Eagles taking on the Bombers. Now, the Eagles are just one of 2 teams, obviously, down the bottom with Melbourne, who are winless at the moment. And to be honest, I think there are even odds now that they might actually not win a game, and that's been looking more likely by the week. They've just been getting thrashed by sides like Freo, obviously, They even got thrashed by Carlton, who were winless. So I thought they could put up a bit more of a fight. And they're not doing too well under Andrew McQualter, obviously. But they have had a pretty tough start to start off their year. Obviously, the Gold Coast game, I feel like a few people expected them to win that. They're also disappointing in that. They do still have a few injuries like McGovern, but I believe he might be returning soon. As for the Bombers, well, they've got 2 wins on the trot. They've been pretty well. Obviously, the D's are on the strongest side, but they really took advantage of them, the Bombers. I should have really backed them in against the D's at the Adelaide Oval, where they do play all right. They also got the win against Port. So I feel like a few people are saying this could be a chance for West Coast to get their first win, but I'm unfortunately just not buying into it. I think the Bombers, they'll be wanting to get the win here to go 3-2 after losing their first 2. I think the Bombers at Optus would just be too strong. I'm going to go the Bombers to win by 32 points at Optus on the Good Friday night. We move on to the first Easter Saturday game at the G between Melbourne and Freo. Melbourne have been arguably the most disappointing side to start the season. Yes, they did just miss the bottom 4 last year, but you look at their team last year compared to this year, I feel like they haven't even got that many injuries. They're just playing, they're not playing for each other. They're just looking really poor, and it's pretty much time to start a rebuild if they can't get a win anytime soon, because it's just looking really poor. Simon Goodwin's under heaps of pressure. Max Gawn's been the only one who's been stepping up, and Christian Petrarca and some of the other guys in the midfield just haven't even been doing their job. As for Freo, they obviously have 3 wins on the trot, and a pretty easy win against Richmond, obviously. They didn't start off the best, the Dockers, but they did get the win in the end, and they really thrashed them. So they got the job done by 61 points. I think because it's at the G, yeah, look, maybe Melbourne are a chance, but I'm just not buying into them. I've tipped them against Gold Coast. I've tipped them against Essendon. I think I even tipped them the week before that. So they're just not doing it for me, the Ds. I think they're going to struggle against the red-hot Dockers. I'm going to go the Dockers to win this by 26 points in a pretty comfortable win at the G. We head over to the Adelaide Oval now, where we have Adelaide taking on GWS. Now, Adelaide have been pretty disappointing the past couple of weeks. Obviously, they did go down to Gold Coast in that game in a bit of controversial fashion. They were kind of disappointing in the second half against the Cats. They were going really well, and maybe the reason why they did pump out was because they did just play 5 days previously before that on the Saturday, so maybe that was the reason the commentators were saying it. So maybe you could let them off there, but I thought they were still disappointing that second half. But the Cats, they just ran over the top of them. As for the Giants, well, they're going pretty well at the moment, with their only loss being to the Hawks, obviously. The Giants, they got the job done over the Saints. They were just too good. Much classier side, and they did give up a bit in that last quarter. The Saints did get on top, but they were just too strong in the end, the Giants. So this is a very tough one to tip. It is at the Adelaide Oval, where the Giants do not play that badly at the Adelaide Oval, but I just think this is a massive game for the Crows. I think they'll be wanting to win this game. They wouldn't want to go 3-3 after winning their first 3. They really want to take advantage of that hot start. So this is going to be an interesting one, but I feel like in these matchups, you just never know who to tip. Usually you'd be tipping the home side, but I'm going to go the Giants here. I just think they're the much more classiest side. They did against the Saints last week, and they've been pretty good. I'm going to go the Giants here in a 16-point win at the Adelaide Oval. Moving on to the Saturday/twilight night game, we have Gold Coast taking on Richmond in really isn't necessarily the best clash, but the Suns, look, they've been really red hot to start off the year, obviously up there with Brisbane, the Queensland teams. They've just been going really well to start off their season. I'm liking how they're moving the ball. Their defense is also stepping up as well as their offense. And as for the Tigers, obviously, they've lost 4 in a row after winning their first one against Carlton, which we kind of expected. And against Freo, they were really good in the first half. They were scoring. They were transitioning the ball much better. Their pressure rating was up as well at half-time, but then that obviously dropped off the unexperienced list. So I think Richmond, they've had a couple of good performances after that Saints game, obviously against Brisbane and Freo. But I just think this is an easy tip. Yes, it's at Marvel, where Richmond don't even like playing. So I think the Suns, they're just going to be far too strong here. They're going to take advantage of the midfield and pretty much everywhere. I think Gold Coast are going to thrash the Tigers here. I'm going to go the Suns to win by 58 points at Marvel to stay undefeated for 2025. Well, we do have some tough games to tip this round, and this one certainly doesn't get any easier. We've got Port taking on Sydney. A couple of weeks ago, you'd think Sydney would win this, but Port, they've responded massively against Hawthorn. I was considering tipping them. I really should have thought deeper about that, because yeah, that was just amazing, specifically in that first half. Yes, Hawthorn did get on top in the end, and they pretty much looked like they were going to come back. But Port, they were just far too strong, and they definitely deserved the win. That's what they can do. A lot of people call them flat track bullies, like they can beat up on the poor sides and that, but they just really showed their power that they can beat the top sides after a pretty disappointing loss to the Saints the week before at home. As for the Swans, well, I thought they were pretty disappointing against Collingwood. Yes, they still do have some injuries in there, but look, Pies, they were without Houston and a couple of other their good players, so I felt like they were good in the first half, but they just really fell off. Their pressure rating fell off, and Collingwood, they were just too. It was just too easy for them to transition the ball. So this is going to be a tough one. Now this is at the SCG. We do know Port love playing Sydney, but I think that the Swans, they'll just be too good, even though they don't have quite the matchup in the head-to-head. Apart from last year's prelim, we also all know what happened at the Adelaide Oval last year, where Port did thrash them. But I think the Swans, they'll just be too good because this one's at the SCG. I'm going to say the Swans, they take advantage of the home ground, and we'll say the Swans to win by 19 points. Moving on to a bit more of a weird fixture, of one we haven't seen in a while. We have the primetime Easter Sunday clash between the Saints and the Bulldogs. Now, can't remember the last time we had primetime Easter Sunday clashes. I think, I don't know if we had one last year, but it doesn't usually happen that much. And, well, as for the Bulldogs, well, they obviously ran out of gas against Brisbane. But I feel like, though, they did play well. Yes, a 33-point lead is not much in today's game. And, look, I just think that the Lions were the much better side in that, nor would they really got on top. But the Bulldogs, they were pretty good for that first half. Now, I do believe that there is a chance Bontempelli could be coming back for this game, which, as a Saints fan, really does pain me because I felt like we could easily win this without Bontempelli playing, but I don't know if he's going to be in or not. I feel like he might be, though. As for the Saints, well, yes, we could be disappointed by our loss on the weekend. I thought we played all right. I think to start off the game, we were much better. You look at our other only loss to Adelaide. At least we started off well in the Giants game than the Adelaide game, and we were able to score more in that last quarter. It's just that third quarter the second quarter, the Giants really got on top. They were just the better team. That was just one of those matches where the better team got on top. It proves they're a bit ahead of us at the moment. I reckon at Marvel, though, we can get the job done. We've been playing some really good footy at Marvel. We're 2-0 at Marvel. Yes, the Dogs, they do have injuries, and Bontempelli could be coming back, but I'm going to back in the Saints here. I think we can get it done against the Bulldogs. I'm going to say the Saints to win this in the Easter Sunday clash by 14 points at Marvel. Next up, we have a cracking contest at the G. We have the Easter Monday clash between Geelong and Hawthorn, obviously. The Cats, they've got a couple wins in a row after losing there for couple. And as for the Hawks, well, they did go down to the Power. Obviously, they were without Will Day, which is a massive out for them. But, is that maybe a warning that they might actually struggle a bit without him? Because, I feel like the Hawks, they've been a good side start this season and they've won without him. But I feel like maybe against Port, can they win against those good sides without him? He's just a vital piece. And against Port Adelaide early on, though, they were pretty disappointing after starting undefeated. They just came out. I think they had given up like 79 at half time, which just isn't good. And they were down by like 70 at one point, which was just shocking. I honestly thought that maybe there could be an 80-point loss on the cards for the Hawks, which would be a blip in the radar with the way that they've been going. They've been one of the most informed teams in the comp over the past year since they've started off 0-5 last year. They've been one of the most informed teams in the comp. As for the Cats, well, yeah, as we said, they've got those couple of wins in a row. So this is a massive game, obviously. Will Day will also be out for this. This is going to be a cracking contest. And to be honest with you, Geelong kind of do own Hawthorn. We saw it last year. They swept them in the regular season. They got the job done at GMHBA when the Hawks had won like 6 in a row, even though that was at GMHBA, and they also got the Easter Monday clash last year. I'm liking the Cats, though, in this one. I think they're going to be coming out firing. They did it against Adelaide. I think they're going to continue that. I'm going to say the Cats get up in the Easter Monday clash by 13 points, and I think they'll win this year's Easter Monday clash. So those are my tips for round 6, the Easter clash round. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my tips in the comments. Hopefully I can do much better week, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.